Okay, folks, this next part might be a little confusing because it looks like Microsoft has changed some of how this application works a little bit. So it depends upon which version you have. So I want you to look at pages 24 and 25, AC 24, 25. It's going to talk to you about the queries, the reports, and the forms that we're going to be building. And on page 26, this is where it gets a little confusing. So I have my Riverview database open right now. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to open up another access. So if I come down and type access and click on access, now I have two or multiple versions of access running at one time. Okay, so when I open up the Kimberly database, that's the one I want to use. I come up with this whole list of appointments, visit ID, animal ID, blah, blah, blah. So what we want to do is we want to copy all of this stuff and put it into the other database. So if I click on the datasheet selector, I can right click and choose copy, or I can just click copy up here, and that puts it onto my clipboard. Don't close anything because this is what they've changed. So now I have multiple databases going down here. I'm looking for Riverview, and then I'm going to click on append at the very top and click paste append. And it pastes all 65 records here. Okay, if this doesn't work, let me know. But basically, I had two different databases open, actually three. So you've got the Riverview database and you've got the Kimberly database. So we're taking the records from Kimberly, we're copying them, we're not closing anything, and then we're going down to the already been opened Riverview database and we just pasted them all in there. So now instead of our 10 that we had typed in ourselves, now we have 75 because we snagged a bunch from the Kimberly database. And that's on page 27. And so now you can see, let's go to page 28. So I would recommend that you go over and close this Kimberly database. Don't know when they changed that, but it's been very recent, like within the last few months. So page 28, we closed the Kimberly database and we have the Riverview database open. So we want to make sure that we're looking at all of our visits, okay, so 75 of them. And notice over here on the left-hand side, you get these double arrows. So you've got some arrows here, you got some arrows there. This allows you to get a little bit more screen real estate if you like that. If your stuff disappears, you can just click on that again. So those double arrows just hide and expose that details there. So on page 6, or on step 6, on page 28, we want to position the pointer on the star symbol in the row selector for row 11, okay? And then click to select the row. And that would be a new record. So you can do something like this. So you can see that little right-facing arrow. We've already pasted all those records in there. And if you look, all of that stuff that we did looks great. And if you click on page 29, it's giving you kind of an idea about, if you need to be able to reorganize these columns to be able to see things a little bit better. Get that split cursor. Okay. So it's talking about navigating a data sheet down on the bottom of page 29. And you can see there's some forward arrows, some backward arrows. On AC 30, we're going to navigate the visit data sheet. So this is our data sheet, our table. You can close it. Oh, look, would you want to save it? Yep, because we changed the width. You can open it back up. Okay, so they want us to find the field value of 1016. So there is the first record's visit ID value, 1016, and you can go forward, right? And you can also go to the very end of the data sheet. So it just takes you all around the things. Okay, so now we're going to create a simple query. So a query simply means a question. That's all it is. So we've got a bunch of data in here now, 75 records. It's a reasonable amount of stuff. But what we want to do is we want to create a query. So a query means question, and a question usually has an answer. So the answer is what you're going to look at, but the query, the question, is what forms the basis for the information that you're going to get out of it. So we want to click on the Create tab in the ribbon. We're going to click on Query Wizard, and then we're going to click on Simple Query Wizard and choose OK. So this gives you access to the fields that, and you can see this on page 31, the fields that we have in that table. We've only got one table, so this is pretty simple. But on the left-hand side are the possibilities. On the right-hand side are the things that have actually been chosen. So at this point, we don't have anything. But we want to move the visit ID over. And we also want to put in the visit date and the reason. And so now we have 3 fields in our reason. And we're going to choose, so visit ID, visit date, reason. We're going to choose next. There's the name of the query, and it's going to be called the visit query. And we want to call this the visit list instead of the visit query. Okay. And we're not going to modify anything. We just want to choose finish. And now we show a query that's listed over here called visit list. It only has a subset of the information, but it does have 75 records. So it's got all the records with only 3 of the fields, right? So here's the table. So there's 5 things. And in the query, visit list, it's only got 3 things. So you can readjust these as well. If you don't like the looks of things, you need a little bit more space, what have you. And at the bottom of page 32, it's kind of giving you an image of what that looks like. So check that out just to make sure you're on the right track or compare it to what's on my screen. On page 33, it shows you that you can move backward and forward on this as well. And then I'm going to close this query. And do you want to save? Yes. Okay. Anytime you make a structural change. Okay, bottom of page 33, we're going to use this same table to make a form. So we have our visit table open, and we're going to click on the word form. And on page 34, once you click on the form button, it's pretty much, it does all that for you. So the form, you've filled out forms before. So if you go to Amazon and you're signing up for an account or you're trying to type in a new address, there's a form that you put that information into. Well, we already have the information, so we're not entering anything new. This is for old stuff. This is more of the form for what you would look at. You could also use this for data entry. So on page 35, they're showing you that you can go through this down at the bottom using these little navigation tools. And this takes you through all the different records that you would have. And we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to choose save. And this time, instead of visit list, we're going to call this visit data and choose OK. Now, if you look on the left, now I have tables, queries, and a form. And it looks like a misspelled visit list. So if I right click and can I change the name of it? Yes. And I'll just take out that little space. And now everything's goody goody. Okay, so let's close that visit data using the X. And now we want to use a report. So we're going to go back up to the Create tab in the ribbon, and this time we're going to click on Report. The report is here. And we click on Report, and there's a little bit of adjustments that you need to make, but you can see how simple it is to make a very straightforward report. But we want to resize some of these things because these don't really look very good at all. So I'll just kind of hover over top of this. And you can see that I'll get a split cursor. And this is going to make these things fit on here. So the grooming line is the really wide one. Well, as long as that fits, and then the rest of that stuff would fit as well. But you need to go down a little bit more to the bottom of your report. And this page of one needs to be moved over a little bit. This line on the right-hand side indicates where the edge of the page is going to be. The other thing you'll notice is that the 75 doesn't really fit, so I need to make that guy just a little bit wider so the whole thing shows up. I probably don't want to mess with that thing, and I don't really want to mess with that column, so we'll just leave it. I can read everything. It looks as if everything's going to fit okay. Yeah, I think that'll be fine. Okay, so that's page 36. If I scooch over to page 37, it's kind of showing you what you might want to do with all of that. And there's only one page for this report, so if you were to print that, it would all show up on one piece of paper. So on page 38, step 1, it says you can view the report in print preview. So if you go to the Design tab here, there's a print preview. So if you go to the View arrow, you can actually see what this is going to look like. And so by default, that's not bad. Okay. I'm going to close this print preview because I don't want you to print anything. And let's go over to page 39. We're going to close this visit report. And yes, we're going to save it. And we're going to call it the visit details. No spaces, capital V, capital D, and that's saved. So that is page 39. Close that, and I'm on page 40. We're going to view objects in the Riverview database. So on the left-hand side, you can see you've got tables, queries, forms, and reports. And they all should be named similarly there. So check my work and compare it against what you have. I want you to skip page 41. I am not a fan of Microsoft's built-in help. I think that it's not helpful. Most of the time, it just leads you on a wild goose chase. You'd probably be better off going to the internet and doing a search there. I'd also recommend YouTube. So let's close this visit table as well. And you can see there's no save button because everything's saved. I'm on page 42. So on page 42, it gives you some information about compacting a database. So what that means is it's kind of like cleaning up your room, basically. When you got stuff scattered all over the place, you have a lot of wasted space, places where you can't actually get to. If space were tight and you lived in a tiny house, for example, you'd have to be more organized and you'd have to keep things where they belong all the time, or else you just couldn't get through the house. So with a database, what you're trying to do is you're trying to keep things as neat and tidy as possible, not just because of space, but because the closer things are to one another, the easier it would be for you to be able to retrieve the information too. So imagine if you put your forks in your kitchen and you put your spoons in the neighbor's garage. To access both of them, it's going to take a little while. So you put those two things in a similar place. It just makes it easier to get at. So on page 43, what we're going to do is we're going to compact things. So what this does is it takes any uh, area within your database that could be saved. In other words, it's like blank spaces on the computer, and puts it all right next to one another. So if you click on File, sorry about that, folks. Yeah, so this is going to be a little different than what the book has, but if you click on File, and then you click on Info, and then if you look here, this is where the Compact and Repair database is located. And so all it's going to do, you probably won't even notice that it's happening because we don't have very much information in here, is it's just squeezing it together so it's the most efficient file possible. That's it. That's all that it's happening. So periodically, you will need to do that. And that's about it for the first section of Access. And once you've gotten this one done, you should work on the review. So the way these databases are going to work is once you've completed this Access 1, you're going to use this file to start off Access 2. And the same is true for the review assignment. So take your time and just make sure that you're typing properly. It's not as much work as the Excel or the Word documents, but it has to be more precise, especially ID numbers. Okay, so once you've got that one done, you can close it and you can upload that to our class website. And that's going to be Access 1 tutorial. Okay, excellent. Thanks.